Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. RMB here with another look at the never-to-be-made Axanar feature film that I was slated to direct. This time, we're going to take a look at Starbase One and the establishing shots of Earth. Now, as many people know, I began the process of directing these shots by playing in my office with starship models and cameras and just coming up with just ideas. And then I would shoot off emails to Tobias Richter. So this one comes from October 8th, 2015 at 1:22 in the afternoon. Tobias, one shot. This is, of course, our Starbase One establishing shot. Here's how I see it. We have a Prelude Federation starship, but not an Ares class, approach from space. And we track with it, revealing Earth in all her glory, with Starbase One looming large in the foreground, all kinds of activity surrounding the station. I want the shot to finish with the Earth filling the entire background, framing our starbase, so we don't see any edges of the planet. And Starbase One should, of course, look like a place we'd all want to visit. As always, we should have a cool virtual camera move that will hopefully be fresh and unique. This should be one epic shot. So this is the animatic Tobias sent back to me, and I could not have been happier. This is exactly the kind of thing I wanted to see. This is the first time we ever see Earth in Axanar, and it was just exactly what I dreamt of. Now, at first, it was my idea that Starbase One would look like the starbase that we saw first in the 1975 Franz Josef Technical Manual. Because if we could find a way to tie in Axanar some way to Star Trek canon and Star Trek's past, I wanted to do that. Now, I always loved the idea of the starbase from the Franz Josef Technical Manual. Here I stole these off the internet, off DeviantArt and things like that. But I always liked this idea, but after talking to Tobias, we both agreed it looked dated. But my thought was, whatever this starbase was, it would have to evolve into space dock, which we first saw, of course, in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. So I wanted to have something that we could believe that over the course of a number of decades, we would get to have it look like space dock from Star Trek III. Now, aside from K7 Space Station that we saw in the second season TOS episode, The Trouble with Tribbles, we saw famously this in Star Trek The Motion Picture. I always saw this not as a space station per se, but more of an administration facility that was overseeing the refit of the Enterprise in Star Trek The Motion Picture. This is more of an office building, so I didn't want it to look like this. Now, here we have the beauty pass of the ILM-built space dock model for Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. And I've always loved this design. It's big, it's beefy, starships fit inside of it. So I always thought that our starbase should probably evolve into this, or maybe this is a whole different base that's built. But I wanted it to be sort of redolent of this, but also look sort of retro. To help design this base, Tobias Richter called upon the great Andy Probert, who famously helped develop the Enterprise refit for Star Trek The Motion Picture, and who designed the Enterprise D for Star Trek The Next Generation. And it was my thought that around the outside of this base, since we wouldn't have ships going inside, we would have to have a way that service could be provided to starships en masse, because this was sort of the middle of it was the hub of the Federation. So we needed a quick and easy way that starships could sort of pull up, be serviced, and leave, not sort of cocooned away in a dry dock for months at a time, but could come in and be serviced relatively quickly. So Andy came up with these concepts for this sort of clamshell that would come down, or these bands that would retract and surround the ships and hold them in place while they were serviced. And I think he did a marvelous job. But after all of this, we still didn't know what Starbase One would look like. So Tobias began designing ideas for his Starbase One design that we would have to sign off on. Now, these were the upper and lower designs he'd come up with. You can see the Andy Probert idea of the clamshells that would clamp down onto the starships. These didn't really float my boat. They looked too much like, I don't know, hubcaps to me, or rims. The idea was that Starbase One would be 3 miles across, and that would have a transmitter that came down below it that, of course, had to be able to communicate with the entire quadrant. So it had to be huge. This thing was huge. And this, we got closer. That looked a little better to me. It looked sort of vaguely like the Franz Josef design, but it was still modern. Still didn't dig it yet. I don't know. It still looked a little too automotive to me, a little too bulky. It wasn't elegant until we came up with this. This was our final design for Starbase One, and I really liked it. You could see how big it was. You could see the size of the transmitter. So this was the design that we agreed to come up with. Now here's the original animatic again, which does not have Tobias's model in it because we didn't know what it looked like. And now here's the finished shot of Starbase One. It was actually, I believe it was scene 5 in the film, scene 5. And you are going to see how magnificent this model looked. It's absolutely stunning. And this was really going to be the only shot. And then Tobias, because the model was so detailed and so amazing, that Tobias went ahead and made these, which showcases the grandeur and the incredible awesomeness of this model that he built. It is just stunning. And I'm so glad he did these extra 2 shots because it really showcased. And then we see it once again later on in the film, scene 88. This was, again, the original animatic before Starbase One was designed. We didn't know what it looked like. And then here is the finished model again, because it's such a beautiful model, such an incredible design. I mean, Tobias it's staggering what he was able to accomplish and what we could have done if we were able to finish the Axanar feature film, and I'm sorry to say we didn't. Here are the effects strung together at our preferred aspect ratio of 239:1 or 2048 by 858 pixels. This was going to be finished in 2K. Again, you can see the staggering beauty of this model. You can also see how these hubs, these larger hubs, these spokes would extend outward if we needed more space. If right here you can see if the starships needed more space to be serviced or bigger ships came in, they could be moved. The staggering vision of all the people involved in the Axanar feature film, it's too bad we were never able to realize that. It's one of the great regrets of my life, but you can see a little bit of it here.